Hey, everybody, it's Robert here, and together we are going to create order among chaos so that you can effectively manage the everyday whirlwind of responsibilities so that you're empowered to do more leading and less reacting. And today we have Robertson Stewart with us. Robertson's experience as an employee and manager has now stretched over a period of nearly 40 years, during which time he's had numerous opportunities to learn. Arriving in France in 1992 and not speaking a word of French, he managed to work his way up from cleaner to general manager of some of the biggest luxury hotels in Europe. During the course of Robertson's career, he's led teams from a handful to several hundred. He now teaches, he now teaches management to master's and bachelor students in both English and French at reputed management schools in Paris, France. He also coaches and mentors executives and managers on an individual basis. Robertson's first book, Employee Power, explains why it is that employee relationship management, ERM, should always come before customer relationship management, CRM. His second book was released in November of 2020 and is called One-to-One, Managing Quality Time with Individuals for Engagement and Success. And his third book, released in October of 2022, and is called Time to Manage, an agenda for effective management. Welcome, Rob.
Well, thank you for having me, Robert, and thank you for the invitation. Very happy to be with you today.
Yeah, it's good. It's good, and we're looking forward to it. So we'll just dive right in. So too many of us, we get caught up in the day-to-day of operating our business. And because of that, we just have a hard time actually leading the business. I mean, why is that?
Well, I think a lot of the time, Robert, to be honest, I think it's just because we don't take time for ourselves. We don't take time, and I like to use a little acronym that it's actually in one of my books, in fact, which is STOP. Yeah, so spend time on planning. So stop what you're doing. Because people, what they do is they get their head into something, yeah. They get so involved in what they're doing in the action, yeah, if we can say it like that they forget to plan things because they're so involved in running their business. They're so involved, and of course they are. They're passionate about their business, so of course you're involved and you get really excited about things and you get into the action and stuff. But a lot of the time, we just forget to take that step back, that necessary step back, say stop. Let's have a look at what we're really doing. And are we being not efficient? Because we can always be efficient. Yeah? We can always be get better and better at doing one thing better and better. But are we doing the right things? Are we actually being effective? Yeah, I think that's the biggest question that some of us forget to ask ourselves from time to time.
Yeah. So is that what? So we're asking, are we doing the right things? Is that why it's so important to just take time for yourself to stop and spend time on planning, because that's when you're able to stand back and kind of ask yourself those questions? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying. I say what I often do is I actually write what I call the pertinent questions. Yeah, I write them down for myself because sometimes I do the same as everyone else. I'll be honest. Sometimes I just get so carried away and I think I become obsessive with one thing and start to work too much on that thing. And then I forget something really important, yeah, that I was supposed to do. So I think that happens to everyone, yeah. But I think one of the steps to make sure that you don't do this is from time to time, just take that time, as you just said, and then write those questions down. And there are the 5 WH questions, in fact, yeah, that I write down for myself, yeah. So it's what, why, when, where, who, and how. And I write those questions down for myself. And it's a great problem solver because what it does for you, it allows you to structure the way you're thinking about your business. Because you ask, what am I actually doing? Am I actually doing the right thing at the moment? Yeah. Am I actually doing the thing I should be doing at the moment? Yeah. So that's the when. Yeah. Where am I doing things? Am I doing things in the right place? Yeah. Like, I don't know, I've got a really strange example of that is when I was trying to write some courses once and I was frozen stiff in my, so I couldn't think properly because the heating wasn't working properly. It's just simple as that, Or to take another example of when you do things, like you decide to have a a conversation, an important conversation with someone, and you have that conversation just after lunch, which is a disaster because both you and the other person, are busy digesting your food you've just eaten, and your attention span is the same as a goldfish, basically. So you're not going to do very well. So that's basically telling you when to do things, and then how to do things. It comes back to the part about being effective. Can you be effective or not, and how to be effective? And I think coming back to your original question on that is to say that yes, indeed, you do need that time to think to yourself, and you mustn't have any distractions during that time. What I do, and my advice to people for that time alone, that thinking time, is you switch everything off. You switch your phone off, you switch your computer off, you take out a blank sheet of paper, you close your computer, you just close it, and you sit there in front of a blank piece of paper and you ask yourselves those questions.
Yeah.
And it really does, sometimes really helps you get your direction back, where you're going.
Yeah. And it's hard for us to take that lots of times when we're just right in the middle of everything. Another way that I've heard it is kind of what you're talking about, like making sure that your ladder is leaned up against the right wall, because I think I first heard that from Stephen Covey. Like you can have your ladder up against the wall and be climbing it fast just to get to the top and realize that it was leaned against the wrong wall.
Yeah.
You don't have your priorities straight.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and that's I think that comes from the 7 Habits book of Stephen Covey. Is that right?
Yeah, that's where
that's a great example. That's a very good example, because it's often what happens is you really do get carried away with what you're doing, and then you miss the thing that you should be doing. And I think, and it's a lot of the time, it's not to do with the fact that, I mean, none of us are particularly stupid, I mean, well, I hope. I mean, I'm talking for myself here. But sometimes I do get carried away, and then I think to myself, no, what am I doing? And then I remember a couple of things that come to head. One of them are really good. It's failing to plan is the same thing as planning to fail.
Yeah.
So you basically, if you don't plan, you're going to fail, because at one point you won't be able to run after things anymore. It's going to become too much. You'll be firefighting all the time. And there's another one I love, and I can't remember who's saying this, but it's about cutting a tree down. Someone gives you a couple of hours to cut a tree down, and a lot of people don't get this right, and they'll spend a couple of days trying to cut the tree down, because what they didn't do was they didn't spend an hour sharpening the axe first.
Yeah.
So that's being really effective, is doing the right thing first.
Yeah. That's it's really simple, but it's super, super powerful. So how often, like in your opinion, how often do you think someone should like stop, spend time on planning, like when they should step back and really ask those questions to make sure they're even going in the right direction?
Yeah, well, I was in the habit of doing it during my career, which is stretched over quite a long period. Of course, I'm still young, of course, but in fact, I used to do that once a week. And I still do it once a week. So I sit down, and I'll sit down with my piece of paper, a blank piece of paper, actually, most of the time, and sit there and say, okay, what am I actually doing? Ask myself those questions. I also sometimes use the Eisenhower matrix, to help me, to guide me with that. So that's to make the difference between what's really urgent, what's really important. And I think anyone listening in, I would be well advised to have a look at this matrix, the Eisenhower matrix, which is also mentioned in Stephen Covey's book that you mentioned earlier.
Yeah,
and that's a fantastic tool to help with this stage of self-reflection and what you're doing. And like, just to say very briefly, I mean, if something's not urgent and not important, why are you even thinking about doing it? Just get rid of it. just put it in the bin, delete it.
Yeah.
And then things that are urgent but not really important, then you can think to yourself, okay, it's important but it's not urgent. Okay, fine. If it's important and not urgent, can someone else do this for me, or can this wait for some other time? Then if it's important and urgent, well, that's the thing you really have to get done now. That's today. And then, of course, then the planning comes into its own field when you talk about things that are not they're not urgent, but they're really important. And those are the things that need to be planned, and planned for. So I think if you use that tool correctly, yeah, I think that can really help as well to structure the way you get things done and give you a good sort of action plan. Yeah.
Yeah, it does. It creates a lot of awareness. I actually just read that, not that whole book the other day, but I read the Habit 3, which is to put first things first, which is all about
Yeah.
prioritizing, right? And that's kind of
Yeah, exactly.
that's kind of what we're talking about is I mean, we're saying planning, but it's working with prioritizing, just making sure that we're working on the right things, going in the
Yeah,
right direction. And I like that you
exactly.
said that you do that once a week. I do the same thing. I try to take time every Monday morning to just kind of recalibrate with my goals, recalibrate with my quarterly objectives, and just try and decide what is the highest priority for this week.
Mm-hmm.
So that, and then I can just dive into it, feeling confident that I'm working on the right things. But
Yeah,
if I never step back and stop, like you say, that acronym, and spend time on planning, then it's hard to recalibrate on that. It's easy to get kind of in a rabbit hole in your life and realize
exactly.
going nowhere fast.
Yeah, exactly. I like that as well. It's going nowhere fast. It's a very good one. It's yeah, but as you say, you used a very important word. You know, it's really habits. Yeah, you used the word habit there
Yeah.
earlier, and I think this is what you know, sometimes it can be difficult to start getting into these kind of habits, but once you do, once you've made this good habit, yeah, of taking the time to think and taking the time to plan. And I like you say, like we're both doing once a week. I think it's invaluable. It's really invaluable because it avoids you wasting so much time, yeah, on things that actually don't matter, yeah. And there's one other thing regarding that as well. There's an expression. I don't know if you heard this one, but it's you know, you must eat the frog, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's basically, I think a lot of people must have heard this, and it's the thing you don't want to do, but you know it's really important, but you really don't want to do it, right? It's like me. Let me give you an example. If I'm oh yeah, when I'm having to do my billing, yeah, for the month, yeah, it's just, it's just it's just very tedious. It's very annoying, right? And it's just not very exciting, right? But it has to be done, yeah. And the day it has to be done, it has to be done that day. Otherwise, all the bills are going to arrive for all the people I'm billing, yeah, are going to arrive too late, yeah, be paid the next month. So it's going to create me a cash flow problem, which will become a serious problem if I don't deal with it. So that's I think that's one of the things that we've got to understand as well is that as when you're running your own business, yeah, you just sometimes you just have to eat that frog and say, okay, well, okay, I don't like doing this, but I'm going to have to do this right now. And the great thing about that is once you've done it, the rest of the day is just fantastic because you know you're going to reward yourself by doing things you love doing after. Yeah, so I think that's also, you know, in terms of self motivation, is also something to look forward to. Once I get that done, I'm going to allow myself to go on LinkedIn and post something that I really want to post. Do something creative, yeah. Once I've got all that billing done,
Yeah, that is a powerful concept. It builds your confidence in yourself if you do the hard thing first.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's powerful. You know, we hear a lot of these things, but for some reason we still struggle to implement them. I mean, what would you say to someone that understands it right here, but yet kind of struggles to implement it in their heart?
Yeah. I think it's the same thing as you know, having regular sleeping hours. Yeah, it's the same thing. It's to force yourself at first. You know, we always say that the bad medicine. What I would say to someone is the medicine that tastes the worst. Yeah, is probably always the best for you. You know. So I would say, even though it's difficult at first, maybe to get into that habit, yeah, force yourself, push yourself, yeah, to do it. Just do it, because at the end of the day, you won't regret it when you get into those kind of habits. Yeah, later on, it's going to save you so much time. It's going to save you so much. And another thing it's going to save you is stress. You're going to put yourself in a position where you're always in control of what you're doing, yeah, and you're not in a position where one day you're going to wake up and just go, oh my god, I was supposed to do this. What's happened? You know, it's like I've got 2 hours to do something. It's going to take me 10 hours to do. You know, and it's like huge stress in there, and you're all excited. But that can be avoided. That can clearly be avoided. And that used to happen to me when I was a very young manager. Happened to me a lot, you know. You put yourself in positions. I don't know if I was doing it on purpose psychologically, but put yourself in highly stressful positions that you don't really need to do. And so I think to avoid the stress, give yourself, and it helps your mental health basically as well, I think, at the end of the day. So that's what I would use to convince someone.
Yeah, that's awesome. You know, I was listening to a book this morning where the guy, his name's Tommy Newberry, he mentioned, like, with your choices, you're either going to pay now or pay later. And that stood out to me. Like, if you pay now, like, you got to put in the discipline now, but if you pay later, there's going to be interest tacked on top, you know, and you have to pay for it either way. The choices that you
exactly.
make.
I couldn't agree with you more. And it reminds me of a phrase from Jim Rohn, said discipline is the bridge between between goals and accomplishment. Discipline, discipline is the bridge between goals and accomplishment. That was Jim Rohn that said that, and it really is true, you know. And self-discipline, of course, is the worst. Is the hardest thing to do, because you know, if you got yourself, you got yourself, and that's another thing when you're working on your own. The only person you got to turn to is yourself. You have to look at yourself in the mirror and say, "What are you doing? You doing something?" You don't have a boss there to tell you. You know, you should be doing this. Yeah, you have to be telling yourself, "Get that done." Yeah. So that self-discipline is very difficult.
Yeah, it's really powerful, and a lot of the other things that you've shared really powerful. But you know, I also know that you have a, you know, before we end, I just want you have a free gift. You know, I just wanted to make sure that you mentioned that and talked about that for a minute.
Okay, so you mentioned earlier on a couple of my books, and so what I've done actually, I've given you a link. I'll be giving you a link in any case to get a free gift, and the free gift is basically the forewords, the complete forewords to both books, Time to Manage, which is basically an agenda for effective leadership, So we talked about that a bit. And that's a book that talks a lot about time management, obviously, but the foreword's extremely interesting, and you'll find there's a lot of historical references in there, so that'll be very interesting for people. And then a one-to-one as well, and one-to-one is a book talking about one-to-one coaching, and so you get the foreword for that too. And in that foreword, you'll discover exactly why, based on a lot of scientific studies and so forth, why it is that engagement is such a huge thing today. And why it is, how it is that we can actually avoid really what's going on with the Great Resignation. So in those forewords, there's a lot of discoveries to be made in those forewords.
Yeah.
So I'm giving that as a gift.
Yeah. There's a link below this video, so everyone can take advantage of that. That's cool.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, Rob, everything you've shared again with us today, it's been great. We're definitely grateful to have you as part of the event. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. It's been great being with you today. Fantastic. Really enjoyed it.
No, thanks. And before we end the call, I wanted to thank all the listeners as well. You know, and again, wanted to remind you to, again, be seeking for that one idea that you're actually going to implement, because all it takes is just one idea that can completely change your life. And keep an eye out for the next email you see from me. And until next time, I'll see y'all later.